Our next speaker is Howard Hyde. He's a featured columnist at Front Page Magazine, AmericanThinker.com, and edits the website hhcapitalism.com, a site dedicated to spreading the gospel of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and capitalism. The proposition that free people cooperating voluntarily without coercion under the rule of law with private property rights and minimal government produce the most prosperous and just society possible in an imperfect world. In the About the Author section of his book, Pull the Plug on Obamacare, Mr. Hyde advises the reader that, and I quote, "Howard Hyde has no formal credentials whatsoever qualifying him to write this pamphlet. He is neither a doctor, nor a public official, nor a professor, nor a professional economist. He holds no certifications or licenses in medicine, economics, or public policy. He doesn't have any advanced degrees, and the BA degree he does have is in music from the University of Southern California, Thornton Hill. For this reason, the reader is cautioned not to believe anything herein contained on blind faith, but to check every fact carefully, analyze the logic of every argument, and watch out for rhetorical sleights of tongue and pen. Only by being vigilant, skeptical, and critical can the citizen voter prevent from being misled by charlatans posing as experts," unquote. Today, Mr. Hyde is going to talk to us about Pull the Plug on Obamacare. Please welcome Howard Hyde.
Well, thank you for that very unique introduction. I don't think I've quite had an introduction like that before. Let's see. I'm going to need some volunteers later. I'm looking at that. Okay, yeah, got it. Well, it's a great honor for me to be here. A great honor to be invited to speak at your most excellent conference. I have to say these past 3 days have been truly a breath of fresh air. I think it was Dr. Kendall on Thursday who was sending out a warning to the medical students here. Don't get stuck working as an employee in some big hospital corporation. And as someone who has spent the better part of the last 20 years working for large corporations in the IT department, I can testify to that. I've not heard a speech or mission statement presentation by any corporate executive in the past 20 years that measures up to the speakers that we've had in the past 3 days right here. Nothing as intelligent, as substantive, and engaging as what we've had. Well, I am Howard Hyde, citizen economist. I'm here to talk about rolling back Obamacare, and I intend to speak until I can no longer stand. I'm sorry. I guess they're not going to let me do that. Is Charles? Can I at least take off the shirt and do the dance? Oh, cool, great. Now, as the introduction kind of laid out, I can imagine that a number of you may be thinking, who is this guy? What qualifies him to be here? What does he have to offer us, we who have been fighting socialism in medicine for 70 years? Well, we are here because the cause of constitutional government, free markets, private property rights, and voluntary cooperation are under assault as never before seen in our nation's history. And unfortunately, liberty and rule of law applied to any field, let alone medicine, has not been getting adequate support from the credentialed, qualified professionals, the lawyers, the judges, the economists, to say nothing of the politicians that we, the people, have elected, and the administrative czars that we have not, but who exercise power over us. Is it possible that the credentialed social scientists and power brokers have been corrupted? Say it ain't so. But when I meet attorneys and law students who have never even heard of Frederick Bastiat, I have to wonder, what is the basis of their system of legal ethics if it has any basis at all. I have a hunch that our General Counsel Schlafly knows who Friedrich Bastiat is. Is he still here? No, there you are. Okay, good to have you. When I meet professional economists and college economics majors who have not read Adam Smith, Ludwig von Mises, Friedrich Hayek, Milton Friedman, or Thomas Sowell, I have to wonder what their concept of their field even is. It would be as if doctors had never heard of Hippocrates, Galen, Harvey, Virchow, or Lister. And when I dig a little deeper, I find an answer. Economics to the economics establishment, with few exceptions like Dr. Timothy Terrell at Wofford University and the Mises Institute, instead of being a study of how flesh and blood human beings cope with scarce resources that have alternative uses, instead they see their field as a discipline of sophisticated financial and mathematical equations with charts and graphs of aggregate categories in which the individual economic actor, consumer or entrepreneur, is just melted into the batter. This is not political economy as it was known in the 19th century, and it is not the philosophy that will preserve, protect, and defend liberty and constitutional government and free human beings living under the rule of law, which are that most scarce and valuable of all resources. Today's mainstream economics profession seems to take as axiomatic the idea that government is the prime mover in society and the economy, and that it is government's job to ensure that outcomes turn out correctly according to whatever defines correct in the political moment, and that it is the individual's job, your job and my job, to do what is correct according to what is determined by the experts in power. Buy more, save less, pay more taxes, take more entitlements, eat more goodies. Run your business as the IRS and Sarbanes-Oxley and Dodd-Frank tell you to. Run your medical practice as Donald Berwick or Kathleen Sebelius or Nancy Pelosi tell you to, after you find out what's in it. Better yet, don't run a private medical practice at all, because that's just selfish greed which doesn't serve the greater good. Sorry. Yeah. Work for a modest salary at a hospital corporation of Harry Reid's choosing, where, if you're lucky, you'll at least have someone with a medical background telling you what to do and evaluating your protocol compliance, although probably not someone as highly trained and experienced as you. So if hardly anyone can graduate from a law school, a public policy, or economic degree program without being so disinformed, so indoctrinated into a government-centric worldview, so ignorant of the foundations and legacy of their own profession and of their country, then the defense of individual freedom, the Constitution, private property, and entrepreneurial capitalism, of which private medical practice is an expression, that defense will have to come from outside of the credentialed ranks. It will come from outlaws and cowboys and tea partiers and misfits. It will come from former slackers like Andrew Breitbart and former communist revolutionaries like David Horowitz and former New Dealers like Ronald Reagan and whacked-out libertarians like Ron Paul and ex-liberal socialist progressive Democrats from Berkeley by way of Paris like yours truly. Speaking of Reagan and economics, you know that Reagan earned a bachelor's degree in economics from Eureka College, a small college in Illinois, around 1930-ish. And at that time, they were still teaching classical political economy. Fast forward 10 years, and you have George Herbert Walker Bush learning Keynesian economics at Yale. And that's what made all the difference, okay? Bush never bought into Reagan's understanding of free market classical economics. And that's why even during the primary in 1980, when they were competing for the nomination, Bush referred to Reagan's vision as voodoo economics. And that's why the Republican Party has basically lost its moorings ever since it was infected with the Keynesian virus. Bush, Bob Dole, who's that fellow from Arizona? John McCain? Yeah, all right. Say no more. But I digress. For these reasons, I've dedicated most of my evenings, weekends, vacations, and holidays for the last 20 years studying classical and Austrian economics. And I started my website, hhcapitalism.com. You all have my card. It's there on the table. To try to make my own modest contribution, to try to educate my fellow citizens and economists and lawyers and politicians and doctors and medical students on principles of economics indispensable for their understanding. For while one of the great principles of economics is the division of labor, whereby I do what I do best and you do what you do best, and we exchange our surpluses with one another, making all of us infinitely better off than we could possibly be through self-sufficiency. Yet the one thing that we cannot delegate to specialists is the foundational understanding of economics itself. Every one of us must become a citizen economist, able to differentiate between serious attempts to grapple with scarce resources which have alternative uses versus emotionally appealing political slogans that lead to destruction. That's what Benjamin Franklin was talking about. Sorry, I'm skipping ahead. If we do not do our jobs as citizen economists, then the politicians and power brokers will be only too happy to do it for us, to run our lives for us. That's what Benjamin Franklin was talking about when he said, a republic, if you can keep it. Sir, here in the front, what is your occupation? Yes?
Ophthalmology.
Ophthalmology? Wrong. You are a citizen economist and ophthalmologist, okay? Ma'am, what is your occupation?
I'm a citizen economist, a revolutionary, and a physician.
Okay, class valedictorian, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Now, I have written and published on a broad range of topics at hhcapitalism.com, frontpagemag.com, americanthinker.com, and other venues, including fiscal and monetary policy, immigration, energy, environmentalism, and et cetera. But when it emerged in 2009 that socialized medicine was once again a clear and present danger, I turned my attention to warning my compatriots that ObamaCare was, number one, sold on fraudulent premises, number two, destructive, and number three, doomed to failure. And number four, that there were plenty of alternatives available that would actually work. Now, when the unthinkable happened and the law passed in 2010, and then in 2012, the Supreme Court rewrote it, and Obama was reelected along with 60 of his closest friends, I redoubled my efforts to complete the book. Some of you may have a copy on your tables there. I've tried to give my friends, in a small but substantive package that may be read and comprehended in 1 hour, the logical and factual ammunition they need to have the necessary conversations with their ObamaCare supporter friends and family members, especially now as the creeping doubts fostered by the daily parade of bad news of ObamaCare's destructive effects wears away at their fair-weather convictions and makes them open once again to rational arguments and alternative proposals. We need to rethink this whole thing. After all, at least prior to 2010, it is not true that the United States lagged behind other more enlightened nations that have universal health care. What counts in the end is not how many people are enrolled in a government program, but what the results are. How long is the waiting list for an MRI, a CAT scan, or a knee or hip replacement operation? How many MRI machines are available per capita? What is the average survival rate for cancers, heart attacks, traumatic injuries, and surgery? What country gets the highest marks for responsiveness to the needs of the patient? What country earns more Nobel Prizes in physiology or medicine than the rest of the world combined for the last half century. In all of these categories, because of freedom, through the dynamic and ongoing process of trial and error and retrial, with power not concentrated but dispersed in the hands of those who have the knowledge and take the risks and do the work, the USA is the undisputed world leader. That is your legacy, the legacy of the country doctor on the frontier, informed by the academies of Europe, but imbued with a distinctly American spirit of independence, entrepreneurship, and generosity. Operating under freedom and the Constitution, and by the way, you really did build that. Contrary to the normal impulse of all government, which is to crush any initiative and power not of its own, ours stayed out of the way. Our government enforced the rule of law and otherwise stayed out of the way long enough so that you could build that. And that is the legacy of unprecedented achievement that we need to build upon, not tear it down, not administer it from Washington, not bottle it into a best practice protocol flow chart to be enforced by bureaucrats and computers, not redistribute it by force for the sake of equalizing misery. So how do we defeat the Obamacare juggernaut? The top-down power has spoken, after all. But there is yet hope. The destructive effects are evident to all with each passing day, so that opposition to the law is no longer just a partisan Republican game. Millions of people who had no idea that this law would even touch them personally are losing their jobs, seeing their insurance premiums spike, seeing their hours cut, or finding it impossible to find a job in the first place because John Galt Capital is on strike. Even the unions are up in arms about what this law is doing to their members and to their own prestige. There are cracks in the edifice. We can now go on offense from the bottom up. And the best way to do that, of course, is to pull the plug on Obamacare into every bookstore and kiosk and a newsstand in every airport across the fruited plain, right? Okay, shameless self-promotion, I know. But if not my book, then take your pick from the fine books that we have out in the lobby. Buy and promote Betsy McCoy's book, Beating Obamacare. Get Sally Pipe's pamphlet, The Cure for Obamacare. It's even better than mine. You know why? Because it's only half as long, okay? This is what we need. This is the kind of thing we need to change the minds of people who aren't inclined to read 10-pound economics treatises, but who may be ready to start to question the progressive socialist indoctrination that they've had all their lives. When reality hits them in the face, you know, they had such great expectations for when they were graduating college, you know, the job they were going to get, the money they were going to earn, the families they were going to start, the houses that they were going to own, the businesses that they were going to start. It's all falling apart. What the hell is going on? I've got to think different. I've got to read something else that I haven't read before, okay? That's the opening that we have. So make sure that you buy 10 copies of the book of your choice and hand them out to your liberal friends and your in-laws. Now, I would much rather be asked, why are you done talking, than when are you done talking? So I will just say in conclusion, AAPS, I am deeply moved by the graciousness with which you have accepted me into your family this week. I salute you, and I am at your service. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde, and we're happy to have you. I do want to mention that at the break, Mr. Hyde and Dr. Lee Hyde will be available out front to sign copies of their books, so please feel free to visit the registration desk out front.